Looking back on your life, you probably sequence it into segments. The times that ended only to create new time periods tinted with different emotional flavors. This was the time I lost my job. This was the time I entered my relationship. This was the time I went through that accident that changed my life forever. These blocks of time might feel like moments of pain or misery when unfolding in real time. But while looking back, these key moments often take on a new note when the person looks back on them. I was never the same after that. That experience definitely humbled me. We could think of these moments as stumbling stones, or we could look at them as moments that strengthen us. Or we could look at them as shifts in our consciousness. Now, what do we mean by a shift in consciousness? A shift in consciousness often refers to a significant change or transformation in an individual's awareness, perception, or understanding of themselves, others, or the world around them. You can think of it like taking a step back. When our worldview is small, we're zoomed in. It's like looking through a macro lens. And when our awareness expands, we step back and start to view the world through a wide-angle lens. You can start to see how things intertwine and relate to each other. Suddenly, there's no strict right or wrong because you're seeing how everything affects each other and how everything relates to each other, and there's a lot more nuance to the picture. This interest in the evolution of consciousness expansion has fascinated many for centuries, but it wasn't until developmental psychologist Claire W. Graves began developing his model of biopsychosocial development in the 1950s that we start to see the larger picture of consciousness development.
Essentially, 8 major conditions of human existence that have or are emerging in man's history to date. And the psychological map is the picturization of what these 8 levels of human existence are.
Dr. Claire W. Graves studied many different cultures to find how people and societies grow through different stages of thinking and behaving. Each stage has its own beliefs and values. Later, Professor Don Beck and Chris Cowan made the model more understandable by using colors, like beige, purple, and red, to show each stage. And thus, spiral dynamics was born. Sometimes it can seem impossible to imagine our current world rising past our differences and coming together in any sort of meaningful way. I mean, it was only 138 years ago that America was still practicing chattel slavery, and even today we're still feeling the effects. And now the battle of the sexes has begun, along with a class war between the rich and the lower classes. It seems impossible to imagine a world of peace, either individually or as a whole. But what if I told you that it was, in fact, possible? According to spiral dynamics, our world at large is still in the infant stages. We still have a lot of learning to do to get to the higher stages. So this idealized peace likely wouldn't happen for quite a while, possibly even thousands of years. Now, what are these stages exactly, and where would some of the Western countries fall on the scale? Well, let me take you through a brief introduction of the stages, then I'll let you know my thoughts on where we fall as a society on the spiral. Going up the spiral, we're first met with the beige stage, which is the instinctive self. At this stage, the primary concern is survival. A person at this stage is instinctual, driven by needs, and has very little awareness of self as a distinct being. Very few people today are in this stage. Next, we have the purple stage. This is when tribes start to form. A person in this stage is very clannish. There's an emphasis on sacredness, rituals, and respect for elders and customs. Life in this stage is seen through a naive wonderment. It reminds me of depictions of people first discovering fire. There is a shock, a fascination that something this magical could happen. There's not a complete understanding of why or how things happen at this stage, but there is a very deep respect and amazement that it does. Now on to stage red. This is known as the powerful, impulsive stage. This is when the ego starts to form more strongly, separate from the tribe. A person in this stage values glory, revenge, and might. A person in this stage might have the motto, "I'll take what's mine." The introduction of the egocentric self in this phase is very clumsy. There's a proneness to impulsive actions. The person is a slave to their ego. Revenge, defensiveness, exploitation, and instant gratification are all too common in this stage. But don't think red is all bad. Red definitely knows how to set boundaries and stick with them, that's for sure. Next we have the blue stage. Blue values order, stability, and loyalty. There's a search for peace found in organized and absolutist principles. A person in blue often can be religious or very patriotic. There's an emphasis on tradition, clear roles, and obedience to a higher power. Right and wrong are very clearly defined in this stage. After blue, we have orange. The orange stage is known as the achiever self. Orange values success, innovation, and material wealth. Often, orange is associated with capitalism, scientific advancement, and the drive for personal achievement. There's a rationalistic and logical streak in orange and a very strong need to quantify. Orange can also be very competitive. After orange, we have green. Green is very egalitarian. Green emphasizes equality, diversity, and environmental sustainability. Green also values consensus, empathy, and social justice. Green's motto could be equality for all. Once the person breaks out of the individualism of orange, there's a realization of the value of others' perspectives. There's a consideration for the suffering of others. Those in green are very empathetic. The ego fades a bit more than the other stages in favor of helping others. Relativism plays a major theme in this stage due to the emphasis on anti-authoritarianism in favor of pluralism. It sees truth and morality as relative to individual perspectives in context rather than absolute or universal. And now we enter the second tier. After stage green, we have stage yellow. Stage yellow is called the integral self. Stage yellow in spiral dynamics emphasizes adaptability, systems thinking, and continual learning. People at this stage are keen on understanding how things fit together and solving problems in practical ways. They value independence, competence, and growth. Yellow thinkers do well at navigating complex challenges by adjusting to change, using information strategically, and blending diverse viewpoints effectively. After yellow comes turquoise. This is the last stage in spiral dynamics. Stage turquoise reflects a highly holistic and spiritually oriented worldview. A person at this stage is deeply connected to a broader consciousness and seeks unity and harmony in all aspects of life. They prioritize collective well-being, ecological sustainability, and global interconnectedness. Turquoise thinkers are visionary and innovative, aiming to create holistic solutions to global challenges through collaboration and transcending individual and cultural boundaries. They integrate diverse perspectives and aim for a balanced and harmonious existence for all beings. It's hard to say what makes up a turquoise person since so few people in today's world could be described as that. It's estimated that 0.01% of the world is at stage turquoise, which is a very rough estimate. Past turquoise, it's been speculated that there are more stages, but we haven't evolved enough to see what they are. So looking at this model, where do you think the majority of Western countries fall? Most place them in the orange category. As a society, we're still very clearly suffocated by a material obsession. The drive for innovation and material wealth has only served to grow individualism's nasty side. What we've created is a very divided and lonely world. And the limits of the orange stage has brought a lot of people to the next stage. If you take some of the Nordic countries, for example, you can see a pretty good mix of orange and green. There's still this innovative and capitalistic streak, yet it's tempered by the green spirit of safety nets. Yet, in America, you can see this struggle play out dramatically in an intriguing way. The US is still likely in the orange stage. What would the world look like if it evolved from majority orange to a majority in green? The green stage is gaining momentum pretty fast. Movements advocating for minorities, women's rights, and animal rights could be described as green. A green world is a human rights-centered world. Imagine a commune and how it works. Since so many viewpoints are acknowledged, everyone can be heard, but there can be a conformity to this unconformity. Graves characterize the outer-oriented stages like purple, blue, green, and turquoise with a concept of deny self. Within the green-centered stage, individuals prioritize harmony and connection with others. For them, deny self means to adapt their own desires, thoughts, and viewpoints to align with those of the group, ensuring acceptance and fostering warmth. However, they may react strongly when others disrupt this harmony, act independently, or show disregard for collective goals. While they advocate non-judgment, they paradoxically criticize any form of judgment. And this is what we're seeing now. In an attempt to help the downtrodden, many people in sage green will react very reflexively against those who don't agree with them. We see this now online, we see it in the comment section. We see it in cancel culture. A person so passionate about their cause that they become the very thing they fight against. So how does one escape the tiring treadmill of the green stage? I would say most, after exhausting themselves from trying to help others through communicating injustices, or after getting belittled by those in earlier stages, they may come to a realization. They realize that all this talking, all this hate for the oppressor doesn't actually do anything. This anger buildup in them only makes them more tired, more restless. It's when they decide to find peace in themselves, rather than trying desperately to make the world work for themselves, that a shift occurs. This undoing takes a lot of work, because they already have it in their mind who's the villain. But it's when they slow themselves down and really listen to where people are coming from, that they slowly turn from green to yellow. Rather than the ego reacting to someone saying something they don't agree with, it takes a backseat. What do I mean by this? Well, let's use an example. Say you're scrolling through Instagram. You see a comment. It says, "Men are all the same. They cheat, lie, and leave when the woman gets pregnant and leaves her to pick up the pieces." Now the ego is involved. You might say to yourself, "That's ridiculous. Not all men are like that." You might even feel it in your chest that you want to comment back, respond with the real facts, something that evens the playing field. Actually, I know far more women who cheat on men. Think about it. Women are far more likely to have success pursuing someone than a man would. All the men I know in my life have never cheated. That probably felt good to say that, but it suggests something. It suggests your ego is still very involved in your life. When we hit stage yellow, there is a huge relief, like taking off two 50-pound weights that have been on your back your entire life. You're not nearly as bothered, and strangely, people don't know how to react to that. They might say something agitating, expecting to get a rise out of you. Someone in stage orange or stage green might push back. They might defend their side. But someone in stage yellow might not do this. Instead, they ask questions. Why do you feel that way? Have you thought about it this way? Oh, interesting. I've never thought about it like that. Can you tell me more? There's this new sense of curiosity. Yellow is trying to understand how people come to the conclusions they come to. It's taking a step back and evaluating the best mode to open their mind to see their side. They may be having a conversation with someone in a lower stage, and realizing this because they've been there too, they might come down to their level. Yellow views things in a very systematic way. Someone in this stage sees things as constantly evolving. It's not bad to be in a stage blue or orange or even red. These are necessary to expand the mind and to evolve it. It's important to note that no stage is perfect. While it seems that yellow might be, it still has its flaws. And most people are not strictly one stage. Most people are stuck between 2 to 3 stages at a time. They might just be primarily yellow. The literature on stage turquoise is pretty sparse. So few people embody this that it's hard to hone into the characteristics that make up the stage. Like the other stages, turquoise comes online once the person realizes the limits of its previous stage. In this case, that would be yellow. Yellow considers systems, their interconnectedness, and the disruptions caused by their flaws. It's like looking at a holographic 3D model of the world. You can see the lines that intersect to create new forms. However, it does have its pitfalls. It can be isolating. You're constantly seeing these connections and analyzing, and it starts to become obvious how things work. However, yellow often overlooks the depth of wisdom underlying the structure. This is where turquoise comes in. It brings meaning to the picture. Turquoise introduces a holistic, spiritual, and embodied perspective. In this stage, we see systems as more fluid and fractal-like, flowing and mixing together. We view the world as made up of groups, fields, and waves that are all connected in a natural way. It's like everything is part of a big puzzle, and we understand the need to balance these interconnected parts for the world's sake. Green was much more emotional, and yellow was much more logical. But when we arrive at turquoise, there is a balancing act. Intuition now is the main driver. In stage yellow, there was more curiosity, a need to know and understand the systems. Constantly looking outside of themselves, yellow would search. But in stage turquoise, the search is more internal. There's not exactly a need to look for data or statistics surrounding a subject. There's an understanding that there is a global order to everything. Everything is evolving. The material world is a small fractal of a larger fractal, playing its part in the grand scheme of the evolution of consciousness. There might be an understanding that material wealth doesn't matter so much. It's all an illusion, a distraction from the real picture. There may be a shift from trying to attain a higher status to joining a cause that the person believes will raise the consciousness of others. There may be an understanding of the role of karma. What you put into the universe comes back. If you bring light into the world, light will come back to you. If you bring darkness, darkness will follow. Someone in, say, stage red might refute that, but a person in stage turquoise sees deeper within themselves on an intuitive level and realizes the effects of their actions and the actions of others. There is an understanding that the universe is a large, interconnected web breathing life. Turquoise is much more at peace with just being in this interconnectedness. Someone in stage turquoise might say, everything is as it should be, but we have work to do. There's an understanding of the individual role that they play in the grand scheme. The play, the stage, is there. They just have to do their part in the most positive way that they can. Could you imagine a world in stage turquoise? Right now, that seems incomprehensible to me. Usually when I think of stage turquoise, I'm reminded of that Jim Carrey interview a few years back. I remember it going viral, and he said a few things that people thought were pretty crazy.
You gotta admit, it's completely meaningless.
Well, they say they're celebrating icons inside.
Celebrating
Do you believe
icons,
in
boy,
icons?
that is just the absolute lowest aiming, possibility that we could come up with. Yeah, no, I don't believe in icons. I don't believe in personalities. I believe that peace lies beyond personality, beyond invention and disguise, beyond the red S that you wear on your chest that makes bullets bounce off. I believe that it's deeper than that. I believe we're a field of energy dancing for itself. And I don't care.
To me, it seems like he had some sort of breakthrough. And in his subsequent interviews, this only further proves my point.
You talk about like Jim Carrey the man, Jim Carrey the performer. Are you more comfortable as one or the other, or is that are they even mutually exclusive?
I don't exist. So they're all characters that I've played, including Jim Carrey, including Joel Barish, including any of those things. They're all characters. Jim Carrey was a less intentional character,
right?
Because I thought I was just building something that people would like, but it was a character. The one thing, like people talk about depression all the time, the difference between depression and sadness is just, from happenstance, whatever happened or didn't happen for you, or, grief or whatever it is. And depression is your body saying, fuck you, I don't want to be this character anymore. I don't want to hold up this avatar that you've created in the world. It's too much for me.
At the time, even I was confused, but in spiral dynamics, this is pretty common for someone in lower levels not to really understand someone's thinking or understanding in higher levels. On a personal note, I think I've come to a realization myself. Understanding the ego and the mask it wears to the world has made me understand the misery we bring on ourselves. The more we aim to protect it, the more we dig ourselves in a deeper grave. I believe from all the research I've done on consciousness within the framework of spiral dynamics that peace really can only be found once the ego takes a backseat. That's not to say that we should be without ego completely. The ego is important to navigate the world, almost like an avatar in a video game. But integrating it in a healthy way, mainly by imagining in a moment ourselves in the position of our supposed opponent, would be huge. Empathy in times when we think we don't need to use it seems to me to be the key. This would be an absolutely massive thing if people started using this more regularly. But we still have a lot of evolving and changing before we ever possibly even get to this stage. So, is the world going through a shift in consciousness? It seems that with all the back and forth between politics and class wars, that this is the case.
63% of Gen Z and millennials feel burnout. This one gets me really fired up because, hear me out on this. I got a job where I got to get up in the middle of the night. I have a long commute. I'm raising two kids. I sleep between 3 and 4 hours a night. What does a Gen Zer who's working a 9 to 5 have to be stressed out about? Avocado toast?
Overnight, former President Trump walking off his plane hours after surviving this assassination attempt.
Workers take shifts rotating from their workstations, operating 24 hours a day to produce electronic parts, which are in our phones, laptops, etc.
Not even halfway through the year, the data from the weather agency shows the country might be on track to match or even pass the cost of 28 individual billion-dollar weather disasters last year, with the most expensive season still to come.
There's always torment before the peace brought by a new perspective.
You know, it's going to wipe out who knows how many different species. I mean, it's going to kill everything.
And the computer systems and climate modeling have changed to the degree where we can see not only is nuclear winter what was thought in the 80s, it's actually much worse.
We see this playing out, and it's not the first time. Not too long ago, you would be burned at the stake for being a witch. I'd say we've come pretty far, but we still have a long way to go.
You know, when you go and you look at your net worth, it's too much money to even spend in a lifetime. Do you plan to give away the majority of your wealth in your lifetime?
Yeah, I do. And the hard part is figuring out how to do it in a levered way. It's not easy. Building Amazon was not easy. It took